It's that time of WoW when hype starts to build for what's next, right? Hey, it's Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly, your place for some low energy excitement. You can help support the channel by liking this video, subscribing for more WoW coverage, and catch me where I'm live. Players are feeling cheated again. That's what some are claiming about Mage Tower rewards after a post from WoW's community manager for the upcoming Legion remix. The debate over exclusive rewards is nothing new, but I hope to point out why this is an example of when the devs say with World of Warcraft and its many communities inside, feedback from one audience often comes into direct conflict with another. So let's read the post. Many times throughout the history of World of Warcraft, there have been items, titles, and other kinds of rewards that belong in a category of the most prestigious and historic accomplishments, rewards that we believe should be preserved in a historical context for only those players who earned them at the time. Examples that come to mind for many players include Corrupted Ashbringer and the Mist of Pandaria Challenge Mode items. Players who obtain these rewards also maintain a sense of achievement in possessing them to this day. As we explored the full list of all rewards that players can earn when Legion was current content, we've determined that some fit the description above and will not be obtainable in the Legion remix. Mage Tower artifact appearances, artifact weapon appearances from PvP, seasonal PvP gear. These exceptions represent a very limited subset of skill-intensive, limited-time rewards that we feel are consistent with the precedent set in Pandaria Remix. In Legion Remix, players will have access to even more total rewards than Pandaria Remix offered, including some previously retired rewards like the Mythic Chosen Dead Ensembles, the Violet Spellwing, and gear from the Legion pre-launch event. There are also going to be many all-new items and previously unavailable color variants of Legion rewards. Bringing back the Mage Tower appearances has been an ask from players since before the World of Warcraft. I mean, it's been that long. But just like other seasonal rewards of its kind, Blizzard's been pretty firm over wanting to preserve the idea of having a visual reward that represents like a snapshot in time where someone accomplished a great feat of skill or maybe paid someone to get it from at the time. You know, I gotta throw that one in there too. I'm gonna piss some people off with my statements here, but I want to be clear for the few skill-based rewards that I managed to get. I ain't got skin in the game of this conversation. Like, if nothing was sacred in the future, that's not going to affect me one bit. But now I gotta shift gears. As a commentator, I get where Blizzard's coming from, and I can accept what they're trying to preserve in the game that they are trying to make, that we as players also help to shape with our feedback. Today we farm for old transmog and mounts from raids and dungeons that have long passed, and that's okay, because even back then, those items only had a chance to drop. Meaning if you happened to play the crap out of the game at the time, it still wasn't guaranteed that you'd get it. But to get a certain Vicious Gladiator or Keystone Master mount or Mage Tower appearance, those are demonstrations of skill at the time. We just didn't have to be lucky, we had to be pretty good at the game. So I hope I'm doing okay at drawing that distinction. Even if you don't agree with it, I just want you to get what I'm talking about. I believe there can be a space in the game for bona fide prestige rewards, you know, celebrations of how great you are or were at that point in time, and you can lord that over others. I say this as someone who has, very, very few of these kinds of items because, and I've had to face this, I'm not that great at a lot of things in this game. It's up to me to decide if, for those, elite gladiator sets or the werebear form, if I want to let those things spoil my experience as if this cool dinosaur mount and trench coat that they no longer feel good to have, or they no longer matter because I can't get that thing that I wasn't around for a decade ago. Now I get it. After all, it's been 10 years since Legion. Those tryhards with the flail, they got to enjoy with their prestige, they have their story, so now let us have our thing too. What that risks doing though is possibly alienating that part of the audience who does like that feeling of being able to visually show off their skill and show off that snapshot of time. Those players might, because everyone's different, but they might feel less motivated trying to go for those rewards, knowing that they can, I guess, buy those elite gladiator sets by running Comstomp a few years later. Maybe it'll turn them off from playing at all because this kind of game, an MMO in a persistent world, doesn't seem to offer enough to make them feel seen. One could argue that trying to take away these skill-based exclusive rewards like the Mage Tower appearances and Gladiator elite sets and so on and so forth is tantamount to removing content from the game. And in a WoW that's trying to create good experiences for all of these audiences, especially in recent years, who are we to advocate for taking away someone else's sense of accomplishment or fun just to, for the sake of increasing someone else's. I figure Blizzard is trying to avoid the idea of zero-sum game design. Now, there are plenty of folks out there on social media who are like, yeah, I got my exclusive, so, so many years later, let's open up for everyone else. Finally, that's cool. But for every one of those kinds of posts, we get someone else trash-talking mounts for not feeling special or prestigious enough, that they've lost that exclusivity over the years, and especially during this collector's bounty event. And in fairness, folks who might have gotten Invincible or Mimiron's head years and years ago, hey, they probably have a really cool story to tell behind how they got it. Maybe they were part of a top-tier guild and no one else on their server was able to clear the content at the time, and that's an irreplaceable memory. That's theirs. But let's also be blunt. In most of these cases, these people were also lucky. Lucky enough for the thing to drop, sure, and when it was current, they might have needed to be lucky enough to win the role against everyone else, or they blew their DKP on it, or something like that. That, I think, is why the event exists the way it does, because in the end, these mounts were all about drop rate. And the question is less, were you the best at the game at the time, but more like, at what point in World of Warcraft history did you get lucky? That distinction is what Blizzard's been standing behind pretty much from the start. Interestingly, we gotta point out the ahead of the curve mount from Legion. It will be available in the remix, unlike the mount from Mist that was not part of that remix. Now, Copium tells me this is Blizzard trying to be more consistent with their philosophy on exclusive rewards. The MOP remix is where they made a mistake. It was exclusive, but not exclusive and skill-based. The Legion remix reflects the lesson learned, so I expect a future MOP remix will include this mount. But with all that said, I think the ideal solution Blizzard ought to explore is to just do recolors of the Mage Tower skins and have that out. Some precedent does come to mind, like the Amani Warbear. Gamers got that by being good and clearing Zul'Aman quickly back during the Burning Crusade days. It's no longer attainable, but the Amani Battle Bear is. It's just a recolor. More recently, the Werebear artifact form for Guardian Druids was arguably the most popular skin coming out the Mage Tower. When it came back years later, a Fel version of the skin was made available. And there are more than a handful of times where something from the in-game shop ends up on the trading post, or stuff on the trading post has a similar thing as a Twitch drop. There are gamers who stand by the principle that all rewards should be available all the time forever. That sentiment is never going to die, but it can probably be muffled if Blizzard almost literally buries us with tons of other cool appearances from the remix, and I'm 100% behind having new recolors of the Mage Tower appearances because, well, maybe some of us don't like the colors we have now, like maybe I want a more neutral colored flail. I'm a big believer that the world of Warcraft is wide enough to please everybody, even with their intentional imperfections. That's just the consequence of trying to look out for everyone. 11.2 is getting closer to launch with promos to take more of our money and some important announcements. One, Valor Stones are not going to be reset ahead of the season, leaving creators like me in shambles after some of us started our whole, do this before the season ends bits. And by the way, Blizzard released their own blog post pointing out all the same things, so I'm going to talk more on that in future Monday videos to help keep you folks up to speed. But in a build this week, they also announced some big changes to our banks. So what's going to happen is they're going to take our reagent bag and void storage, which is like 98 bank slots times 3 pages, and move that into our bank. Our actual bank is going to be converted into a warbank style system, filters and all, featuring up to 6 tabs with 98 slots each. And this is being done per character, so all your alts. Now let's talk about what's actually happening with this conversion. Level 80 characters will already have all 6 bank tabs available. The content from your reagent bags and void storage will simply be moved over into the new bank slots and are pre-labeled as like reagents and void storage in case you forget. If a character isn't at max level, but they happen to have all of their bank slots unlocked, that's going to mean throwing down a bit of gold to activate all the bank slots, the reagent bank, and the void storage. After the patch, they'll also have all 6 tabs available. It doesn't matter what the character's level is. So my pro tip is to go through all your non-level 80 alts and just unlock all these bank slots. It's just pretty cheap. You don't have to fill them up with bags, just unlock the slots. It's going to be new characters though, made after the patch, who will have a different experience. Newly made characters will need to unlock the bank with gold. pay an increase in amounts per tab, totaling a bit over 9,000 gold, which is a lot more expensive than buying a bunch of cheap bags right now, but also a lot cheaper than buying the most expensive bags available. And this new bag gives a ton more space anyway that aren't restricted by having to be reagents or having to be charged to move things around. Alternatively, just leveling these new characters to 80 will also fully unlock the entire bank, meaning the players who will actually notice this change the most will be those who are wanting to make new bank alts after the patch. My advice again though, consider the current leveling event or the Legion remix later if blowing 9,000 gold doesn't really interest you. A lot of folks have left comments that they're scared how Blizzard's going to handle the bank conversion after the incident shortly after War Within's launch, where entire guild banks were deleted and recovery efforts, they were pretty insulting at best. It's what I think was WoW's biggest screw up in its entire history. It was a lot of lost data with every recovery solution exhausted with no compensation to offer. I don't blame folks for being wary or wanting to move their items somewhere or anywhere else to keep them safe. Folks who understand a bit more of the technical side of WoW have been pointing out how our individual character banks, how they're different from the shared space that is a guild bank, and they've discovered error strings that halt the process, probably efforts to protect data during this conversion. But I don't think that bit of reassurance should stop you from taking precautions. Honestly, I don't know what's best. I'm probably going to empty my reagent bank and void storage and probably either send items to alts to sit in their bags or leave it in the in-between space that is the mailbox. That's actually everything I wanted to talk about for this week. There are things I'm working on in advance ahead of the patch, including something special because but you'll have to wait for like a few weeks to see what's cooking. But I do want to ask you folks if you're feeling any of the the hype, as we're like a week away from like Mob Classic, and over off in China, they're celebrating WoW with huge events and upcoming experiences unique to their region. We're a few weeks away from patch 11.2 with season 3 like the week after, and then Midnight's announcement the week after that, and there's now with the Collector's Bounty and the leveling and rep bonuses making being present in the world of Warcraft feel like a place that fulfills a lot of player interests. That's one question, like how excited are you, if at all? And also, what sorts of feelings do you have about this past season as a whole? Because some didn't like the delayed release of content, others aren't so happy about being pulled in all these different directions with so much to do, as if everything needed to be completed before the next thing or before the season ended. It's not like that wasn't a thing at all either. Like I was grinding through duos at the last minute. I wanted to complete the podium because this dick measuring toy, it might come in handy in the future. WoW has been churning out more content faster than ever. Some are rightfully questioning the whole quality versus quantity thing, and also pointing out that today's WoW feels like a series of checklists or chores to fulfill, which I find kind of confusing. I'm having trouble grasping this. I think back to the borrowed power era, when we had to do like PvP or rep grinds to make our Azerite essences stronger because that was the only way to do it. We had to do Torghast because it was the one way to craft legendaries. To me, at least, the grinds around that have that chore-like feel with consequences that I might face, feelings of falling behind. I haven't quite felt like that since Dragonflight, though. I mean, yeah, if I want like crests and valor stones, I need to be out and about doing things, but that's kind of what I mean. They were like things. I got lots of options and I can choose to do what interests me the most. I did Nightfall for the transmog, and I did Visions because I liked the gameplay, but I didn't do them because I had to do it. But let's be fair, content creators who make it a part of their job to be knowledgeable probably have a better handle on managing activities, whereas a player jumping in kind of blind will ask themselves, what do I do at max level? And then an article or a video will info dump them with all the things to do without the context of how to prioritize these activities, which might make them feel like a kid lost in the theme park. Personally, I feel like overall that's better than the on-rails power progression we were forced onto back in the day, and maybe Blizzard can do better to present where these activities lie in the context of power progression and collection. Like, hey, what's up everyone, it's Blizzard, and come check out Nightfall. It's tailored as early max level content that does yada yada yada. And hey, check this out guys, Horrific Visions is a challenging solo and small group endgame that gives hero track gear. So key phrases that gets the viewer checked in, or they can put it off for later, or they can totally ignore it. I see the commentary and I feel like too many people are looking at each feature as like, must do this, must do that right away. Giving gamers enough knowledge can be empowering too. Let them make better informed choices so they can feel good about what they do. That's going to be the show, and next week we continue our bit of prep as the third and final-ish season of The War Within approaches. I'll do my best to keep you up to date because sometimes information changes, we've got to make corrections, and so on and so forth. But I do want to give a massive, massive thanks to everyone who joined me on stream throughout this week. We farmed for a ton of mounts, and boy, my legs are tired, and that's not a metaphor. Congrats to everyone finally getting that one damn mount they've been waiting for years for, and good luck to everyone still going. We also have to give it up to our beloved patrons and to you, viewer, for making it to the end. You fed the algorithm. Now, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.